Hello world. It's Monday, February the 18th, 2019. Present time, 9 minutes until 5 p.m. I hope I said things right. No matter. Today was a bit of a short day for me. I woke up and I didn't want to spring out of bed. I think I slept too late last night. Something I gotta look out for. Went to work. Left my phone on the bus this morning. But I was fortunate I was able to go and run over to the bus, grab my phone back before I rolled out. The bus driver had it. I think someone else must have passed it over to her. So I'm grateful that there are people that are honest. And maybe part of it is also because phones simply aren't that attractive for people to run away with anymore. We've gotten so good about locking these devices down and making it easy to track their whereabouts. You know, if you really wanted to steal phones and, hell, I don't know. Yeah, they've just made it good. They're not as attractive for theft as they used to be. Came back here around noon. While at work today, there was a new face. This woman who was already working with the company, but she's now interning under this group that I'm in. So that's kind of neat. I was asked to move my things, shuffle them around. So I spent most of the day just most of my time at work, moving things around and going over some documentation, trying to learn how to interact with Google Sheets API. Will it be useful? I don't know. We'll see. So after class, I walked back over to the dorm. I'd originally contemplated going downtown, trying to bum the smoke off of someone else out there. But I lucked out. As I was walking down this path toward the student center, I smelled cigarette smoke. And I followed my nose. I found the smoker and was able to get a smoke. That first one hits hard. Anyhow, I'll catch you up on the rest. Yeah, I ought to. I finished the rental car booking for Hawaii. And after I get through some of this, by the time sun sets, I want to get up and out of here. There's one more thing I want to get done. It's booking transportation from Columbia over to St. Louis for the flight. All right. More interesting thing, the company that does these operates the shuttle service between Columbia and St. Louis. They've got these frequent traveler accounts that one can register for. And I was really surprised to learn that in order to perform a password reset, you simply have to call in, provide the ID of your frequent traveler account, and then ask to put in a new password. In fact, any update. No. I think it's only the password. You just call in and say, hey, I need to reset my password. And the person on the other end asks, okay, what would you like to reset your password to? I was a little surprised. I asked, wait, there's no verification? He told me, nope. Kind of curious. I guess their thought, and what I blurted out when I was talking to him was like, oh, I guess it makes sense. Nobody's gonna want to, take trips and then give me credit for it. But what if somebody gets into my account and then books a trip with my accrued points? And there is that. I don't know. In any event, I need to get that knocked out. Uptime. It's artificial intelligence. Google API Sheets. I will have to ask you about this. I'll have to ask you about it. Maybe you'd be willing to share. For now, I want to do my reading. Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. Ain't I a Woman from 1981 is a work of feminist scholarship that explores the complexities of living in the United States as a black woman. Hooks examines the convergence of racism and sexism in major political and social movements throughout American history. Who should read this? Women of color, feminists, and those interested in race and gender theory. Who wrote the book? Bell Hooks is a prolific feminist author, intellectual, and social activist. Her writings focus on systems of oppression shaped by the intersection of race, class, and gender. She is a distinguished professor in residence at Berea College in Kentucky, where she also founded the Bell Hooks Institute. What's in it for me? Learn how women of color can achieve equality in the future by understanding. Ain't I a Woman is named after an 1851 speech by black women's rights activist Sojourner Truth. Though named after a 19th century speech and published in 1981, Bell Hooks's work is as relevant today as it has ever been. Hooks examines how a combination of racism and sexism throughout history has left black women at the very bottom of the social pecking order. By understanding how black women came to be so oppressed, Hooks puts forward theories about how that oppression may be overcome. White men, white women, black men, and black women have all contributed to the problem. The good news? We all have a part to play in the solution. Even if you're not already familiar with issues surrounding race and gender and are looking for an introduction, Hooks's comprehensive look at the problems facing women of color is a great place to start. In these blinks, you'll learn how racism won white women the vote, that the women's rights movement did black women more harm than good, and why Rosa Parks took a back seat to Martin Luther King Jr. Sexism intensified the suffering of black women during slavery. We all know that no two people are the same. We are complicated, multidimensional human beings with our own unique personalities. Sadly, this doesn't mean gender stereotypes don't still exist. In fact, the stereotypes projected on women have continued throughout history. In the 19th century, white American men who used to see all women as sexual temptresses came to see them as pure, innocent, and virginal creatures. But this stereotype didn't apply to black women, who they still assumed to be promiscuous. This attitude can be dated to the arrival of white colonizers from Europe. While establishing social and political order in America, they laid the foundations for racism and sexism. The colonizers labeled enslaved as sexual heathens. Black women viewed as sexually immoral temptresses, while white women were perceived as pure. To white men, this baseless prejudice justified the rape of black women. While black men were subject to racism and exploitation, the added sexual exploitation of black women made their experiences far more demoralizing and dehumanizing. In addition to being forced to work in the fields alongside the men, women were used as domestic house slaves, a means of breeding new slaves and objects of sexual assault. This threat of sexual assault was used to terrorize black slave women, as slave Linda Brent recalls. In her autobiography, she describes how her white master tormented and verbally abused her with threats of rape throughout her teenage years. He told Linda that she was his property and must bend to his will in all things. Women who resisted these sexual advances from masters and overseers were punished, as a slave woman named Anne discovered. Anne recalls the man who was paid to whip her and how he offered and earrings in return for her sexual submission. Instead, she hurled a bottle at him. Anne was sentenced to prison and daily floggings as a result. It was lucky the man didn't die from her attack, or she would have been tried and likely sentenced to death. Sadly, this harsh treatment of black women and the stereotypes about their sexuality weren't abolished along with slavery, as you'll learn in the next blink. Post-abolition, black women continue to struggle and are systematically devalued in society. You would think that when slavery was finally abolished, the lives of black women would improve drastically, but this wasn't the case. Black women found they had no opportunity to improve their social standing or fight against their oppression. Their status as slaves may have changed, but the belief that black women were sexually promiscuous and immoral continued to pervade the American psyche, as black historian and activist Rayford Logan discovered in his research. Logan studied racist caricatures in the Atlantic magazine during the 1890s. One article attributed the unchastity of black women to their disregard of sexual purity. What proof did the article's author have for this disregard of sexual purity? The freedom with which white men could have their way with black women. It wasn't just journalists for the Atlantic who shared the view that black women invited sexual assault from white males. It was a view shared by white society as a whole and affected how black women were treated. For example, this is evident in the following account from a young black woman published in 1912. The woman was hired as a cook for a white household, only to be accosted by the husband. The black woman's husband went to confront the white husband, but was arrested and fined when the white man called the police. The woman challenged her husband's charge, explaining that she had been raped. However, the judge said the court would never accept a black woman's word over a white man's. And it wasn't just the stereotype of sexual promiscuity that caused damage to black women. There was also the mythology of the black woman as a matriarch figure, spread and reinforced by white society. Due to their lower social status, black women worked tirelessly at low-paying service jobs to provide for their families. It was male social scientists who pointed out the role black women played in the labor and domestic spheres, labeling them matriarchs and heads of their households. The author argues that this matriarch label has been used by racist scholars to brainwash black women themselves. As a result, black women believed they have social and political power, economic security, reproductive rights, and political clout. In reality, they possessed none of these. In accepting their role as matriarchs, black women willingly accept their economic, sexist, and racist oppression, remaining submissive to the white patriarchal system. However, as the author says, no matriarchy has ever existed in the United States. In the next blink, you'll learn how these patriarchal ideas have seeped into the black community, causing tensions between black men and women and resulting in lethal consequences. The patriarchal social order perpetuates violence and hatred between black men and women. The American colonists have a lot to answer for. They introduced the idea of a patriarchal society, and the damage is still felt today. Patriarchy dictates that men assume the role of breadwinner and head of household, a concept which black men and women were subject to as much as white men. This delineation of gender roles has been the cause of significant tension between black men and women. The author cites records, dating as far back as 1852, of prominent black figures advocating for distinct gender roles. Consider black nationalist leader Martin Delany. He wrote that black men could enter business and women could be teachers, but added that women should concern themselves foremost with rearing children. Racism from white employers stoked tensions further. From the early 19th century to the mid-20th century, whites refused to employ black men in wage-earning positions. This meant that black women needed to take on domestic service jobs to support their families. Under the white patriarchal structure, white men were the breadwinners. Because of this, black women also looked to black men to free them from their menial work. They would put pressure on their men to be upwardly mobile. Such pressure also came from black writer Gail Stokes. In her 1968 essay on black relationships, Stokes expressed contempt for black men who did not embrace the breadwinner role. She despised coming home to see her partner looking like a slob. She then enviously reports to the maids, nannies, and cooks that white husbands would provide for their wives. It's no wonder black men felt powerless. In trying to reclaim their power, however, black men ended up degrading and controlling black women. As the racial hierarchy within patriarchy had long denied black men the right status and power, most of them were subjected to menial jobs with little monetary reward. Though black males were unable to find selfhood through work, they could assert their masculinity through violence against women. And so black men adopted the traditionally white male sexual exploitation of black women. Malcolm X is a prime example. His biography depicts his exploitation of black women when he worked as a pimp. At the time, he justified this by claiming they were a threat to masculinity and needed to be dominated. The American feminist movement cannot fight against the patriarchy unless it sheds its racism. According to any dictionary definition, the word woman describes all female humans. But the women's rights movement's definition of woman did not include all females, as you'll learn. At the start of the movement, white women feared that black women, who they saw as immoral and promiscuous, would threaten their own social standing. It was an issue pointed out by the leader of the Black New Era group, Josephine Ruffin. In her 1895 speech, Ruffin criticized white women's clubs' refusal to admit black women due to black female immorality. This exclusion became the foundation of feminism, with the white feminist movement uniting to perpetuate this racist ideology. Take the white women workers of the federal government. In the early 1900s, they advocated for segregation in workrooms, washrooms, and showers. The women's rights movement even used racist sentiment to bolster their own campaign for the right to vote. A Southern suffragist at the 1903 National American Women's Suffrage Convention in New Orleans argued for the enfranchisement of white women because it would ensure immediate and durable white supremacy. And she wasn't the only one. As a result of such racist rhetoric, the 1920s American suffrage movement was only committed to the interests of white middle and upper-class women. Black women have been, and still are, erased from the feminist narrative, illustrating the unwillingness of white women to abandon their white supremacist foundations.
If any progress is to be made to bring down the white patriarchal social order, black and white women must unite. The women's liberation movement that emerged in the late 1960s struggled to gain the same privileges and power of white men. However, since white men are the ones holding power, it's they choose who they share this power with. This means there is great competition between black and white women to be the chosen female group. As the author sees it, the white patriarchy has pitted the moral white woman against the immoral black woman to ensure both groups to remain subordinate to white men in the American power structure. American feminists must realize that their platform is inherently racist. In order to have a successful female revolution, white feminists must shatter this platform and strive to dispel any myths, stereotypes, or dividing forces between women. Black women had to compromise their role in the women's rights movement due to racism in society. Black women have always been stuck between a rock and a hard place. They have had to fight battles on many fronts. No matter which battle they've chosen to fight, black women have had to compromise. This is what happened during the women's rights movement of the 19th and 20th century. We celebrate women's suffrage as a major victory, but remember that black women didn't benefit from this in the way that white women did. At first, there had been hope. Anna Cooper, a black women's rights advocate in the 19th century, believed women's suffrage would enable access to higher education and opportunities to make a living without being married. But even after the women's suffrage amendment was passed in 1920, black women saw little change in their social status. In the South, black women who tried to use their hard-earned vote were turned away from the polls and threatened with violence by white election officials. In fact, women's suffrage resulted in increased oppression of black people, as white women used their hard-won vote to support the racist, imperialist, patriarchal politics of their husbands, fathers, and brothers. Furthermore, black women had even bigger battles to fight, and the struggle for women's rights took a back seat to protesting the rise in racial apartheid. This resurgence of segregation threatened to strip black people of the rights they had attained during the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. They were faced with the expansion of Jim Crow laws, exclusion from unions, and from federal employment, such as postal service positions. So while white women were advocating for the Equal Rights Amendment in 1933, black women activists were fighting against lynch mobs and the conditions of black poverty. From the 1940s to the 1960s, black women who initially fought for gender equality conceded to put their efforts into racial equality. In the next blink, you'll find out how, by the time the civil rights movement came along, black female leaders had taken a back seat to men in leadership positions. Black women have also had to compromise their role in black rights. If black women believed, upon achieving black liberation, they would be able to return to advocating for women's rights, they were mistaken. For as much as black liberation actually achieved, black women still didn't enjoy the freedoms they had expected. American society was, and remains, oppressively imperialist, racist, and sexist. Even on their way to achieving black liberation, black women took a back seat to black men. Male leaders of the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr., A. Philip Randolph, and Roy Wilkins, overshadowed black women such as Rosa Parks, Daisy Bates, and Fannie Lou Hamer. Though black male leaders no longer passively accepted the racist black matriarch myth, they did embrace the patriarchal gender roles established by white men and expected black women to be passive and subordinate. It wasn't just leaders of the movement perpetuating the idea of the subservient woman. During the 1950s, black women were also socialized into adopting these gender roles through mass media, such as McCall's Magazine and Ladies' Home Journal. These publications marketed makeup, clothes and feminine ideals to black women who were beginning to enter the middle class. These publications marketed makeup, clothes, and feminine ideals to black women who were beginning to enter the middle classes. This indoctrination of black women through print media and television worked so well that decades later, these constructed ideals of womanhood can still be seen. By the 60s and 70s, many black women believed black liberation had to be led by a strong black patriarchy. This belief was evident in the 1972 book Together, Black Women by Inez Smith Reed. In the book, black female interviewees share their views that black men should assume the dominant role in the black rights movement. As one respondent says, I think the woman should be behind the man. The same woman thought that black men should lead black liberation because men represent the symbol of the races. As we've seen, the core of each equality movement was rotten. The black liberation movement was inherently sexist, and the feminist movement was racist. So what can we do about it? The next blink proposes a radical new vision. The feminist movement needs to overturn the domination of one sex, race, and class in Western culture. It takes courage to evolve when you already have so little, when you've been abused, humiliated, and sexually exploited for centuries. But it's time to accept that the feminist movement needs to make progress. The author argues that feminism is restricted within the white capitalist patriarchal system. She defines true feminism as the liberation of all people, men and women, from all domination, oppression, and sexist role patterns. The only way to attain this, she says, is to completely restructure U.S. society. The existing system promotes male brutality. The culture of violence against women won't be changed by creating more sanctuaries for victims of domestic abuse or teaching women to defend themselves against male sexual assault. Instead, society should stop promoting aggression and violence as a masculine ideal. To advocate for the plight of all oppressed people, we must topple the individualist, imperialist, racist, and sexist oppression that forms the bedrock of American society. One way to go about this is to make sure the feminist movement stops operating within racist and classist confines. Members of women's rights organizations haven't yet dared to address the exclusion that the feminist movement was founded on. Without acknowledging that some women experience sexist oppression to a far greater degree than others, radical change can't occur. The white capitalist patriarchal system is responsible for the whole ideology of sexist and racist oppression. White women and black men were encouraged to seek power for themselves within the rules of the existing patriarchy, rather than uniting across races and genders to achieve collective change and challenge white male dominance. This meant that black women struggled to find a voice in both the women's movement and the black liberation movement. The author advocates a brand of feminism that's all about rebuilding a new society. It would eradicate the ideology of dominance within Western culture and prioritize the self-development of its people over economic and material gains. As Hooks puts it, to me, feminism is a commitment to eradicating the ideology of domination that permeates Western culture on various levels: sex, race, and class, to name a few. For too long, the blueprint for feminism has been based on a flawed power structure. It's time to demolish each wall and build a completely new foundation to build upon. Final summary. The key message in this book. Black women have been oppressed for centuries, and this oppression even exists within the women's and black rights movements, which have ostracized them. The only way to attain true equality is to topple all the existing power structures of race, class, and sex, so that any oppression or domination is eliminated. Black women, in particular, should lead this charge, as they have the most to gain as pioneers of this feminist movement. Suggested further reading. This Will Be My Undoing by Morgan Jerkins. This Will Be My Undoing from 2018 delves into the author's experiences as a black woman by examining race, culture, and feminism, demonstrates why and how black women have been marginalized, and offers suggestions on how this serious situation can be improved. Hey, wow. Wow. Oh. Hello. Hello. I wonder if this will work. My pleasure. I think I started off maybe too buttoned up. I've been noticing that recently. I'm going so slowly that I end up losing something from it. Hey, Jody. How are you? And a koala for now. I'll try to highlight these bits. I think they're important. Just because I don't want to keep... excuse me. I want to have something to show every single day. I'm not there yet. I could get there, but right now it's just more work than it's worth. So I'm trying to make things easier on myself. I'll try to get there soon. Maybe by the end of the month. Maybe sooner. It's been a long time coming. But yes, that was good. Good stuff to think about. Streaming is a difficult game. I don't know that streaming is a difficult game. I feel like streaming itself is quite easy. But it's actually having something to show from the effort spent streaming. That's the tough part, in my experience. Jobin! Daniel, whoa! How much for the shirt? I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Hey, I got some other stuff. This was in the works for a minute. I don't know, I may get around to like setting up a web store eventually. It would probably make sense to do so. Because I got way too many of these for myself. Like, a stupid number. Ta-da. It's been now, what, 4 or 5 days
since I took receipt of this. Why? Really? Can you pitch over? I may set some stuff up. I've been looking into it. Streamlabs actually offers the service. They'll handle everything. But the trouble with the Streamlabs angle is if I use it, it's all really tightly integrated into their shit. And right next to the Streamlabs thing, it says like, hey, you know, it shows like the merchandise store, and then the tab next to it is the donation link. I don't want donations going through Streamlabs. Just me being stubborn, I suppose. Like, I want to be able to check them all. I don't care for the alerts going off in the middle of a broadcast, covering shit up. If there's lag, I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix it right now. Like, I think that the problem may have to do with the little router. Because if I take a look here, I'll keep it open. And then maybe I'll see it. I've noticed it when I've been playing it back, watching over my own shit. I'll see sometimes it just, the video will freeze and then it'll suddenly pick up again, and it's really frustrating. Got to keep on looking for better solutions to handle this workload. Forklift, the half-eaten bowl of mac. What are you talking about? I don't eat mac. There's no bowls here. Can't help you there, man. Okay, on my way. So, I think it's time to book this thing. Or actually, first, let me clear this out of the way. Hitting this bowl for you. Thank you. I've got this lousy electronic cigarette that I can hit. It's so bad. This thing is so bad. And I've talked about getting a better one. Just getting like a small, highly portable thing that uses like a tank. But I just haven't put the time into looking into this. Not yet. Just been slowly powering along. Same old. Choking already. Take it easy, man. Don't work too hard. I can't wait until the day where I don't have to spend so long looking at screens. I say that, and then I've got to be more mindful about how I'm spending my time. Because recently all the stuff that I'm doing is kind of moving towards one direction, and that's spending more time in front of screens. But who knows, maybe it's just like a temporary thing, right? Fingers crossed, it's just a temporary thing. I'll spend more time looking at screens for a bit, so that ultimately I can spend less time looking at screens. We'll see. I don't know. Today I was looking at my pay history of the company, and then I tabbed over to this one thing, and it showed the date at which I'm eligible for retirement. No, I'm turning 30. I am turning 30 this year. This year I'm 30. And that means in order to pull money from like a 401k without taking a tax penalty, I've now got another 32 and a half years ahead of me. It's a long time away. I hope that sometime not too deep into this 32 and a half year career, I'll be able to get away from the screens. I hope. Use them when I want to, and then otherwise don't. Ever wore contacts, or do you hate them? Daniel, I've actually got contacts right over here. Sten, hey. Hey, buddy. The reason why I'm not wearing them right now is because now I have the glasses fixed. So, not too long ago, my glasses failed, and I was gonna show you. They failed right down the middle. I will show you since it's right here. I was taking my shirt off one day, and I had neglected to pull my glasses off. Like sometimes I'll just like pull a little over, and then I felt a slight snap. A sudden release of some pressure, and I knew what happened. So they failed clean down the middle. There's this masking tape on it. Let me pull this away. I use that to be able to put them to some use when I needed it. So for about a week straight, I was just running the contact lenses, and yeah, it's been a time. I ran out of the daily lenses for a moment, and I was just going around, like, not wearing the glasses. I'd carry them around with me, but generally would just enjoy looking out at the world and having it all fuzzy. I think that what I should do from time to time is just go ahead and take them off. I don't think it's good for the eyes. Like, they probably are working a lot harder right now, because it's like they're focusing to infinity. They're trying, but I don't know. I don't know. That's what they tell you. Like, yeah, your eyes are working really hard when if they're not seeing everything in focus. But I think it's maybe eventually it just gives up. It's like, oh, I can't focus, so let me just stop trying. Or maybe it's constantly straining itself. I don't know. Tough to say. Maybe it would help if I were to do this. Just like poke myself in the eye. If I were to do this, maybe to like focus on something really close up once in a while. Maybe that would help. I don't know. What's up is I'm about to clear out of here, man. I'm going to... Did I punch this in already? I don't think I did yet. Yeah, no, I haven't yet. I'm just going to punch some stuff into the computer. I'm actually going to take this computer with me because it's early, but I want to go eat. I want to go eat and sit around and see who shows up and do some work while I'm in the dining hall. I believe. Yep, 1981. Black women and feminism. Do I go get a mani/pedi often? No. Never have I ever gotten a mani/pedi. Never. I'm not opposed to it. Just haven't ever done it. Maybe someday. Maybe someday an opportunity will present itself and I would go, okay, sure, why not? Yeah, thank you. You know, I like to let them grow a little bit and people will leave comments. I remember for some time people were like coming over to the live stream and going like, clip your nails. It's like, okay. Okay. But I would not just say, okay, I would go with, fuck you, pay me. Okay. Oof. One-way express service includes those two spots. Services, airport shuttle, express versus... Okay, alright, well, I'm gonna book this thing later. For now, I'm gonna kill this. I want to get moving. I want to get moving. And I'm gonna take a leisurely time with my dinner. Maybe I'll be back on later tonight, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling. It's been real. Catch up with you again soon. For now, take care. Bye-bye.